Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here once again with the Orns 10-minute take on Manchester City 5, Watford 1. And of course, I think most Watford fans, the vast majority of Watford fans, expected exactly this result. Certainly, there were only one or two who felt that Watford would come away with 3 points today. But the vast majority of the Watford fan base and supporter base firmly knew the result before the game even kicked off. And they did not disappoint because Watford just weren't up to it. Now, look, there were moments in the game where they did fight, but not very much. And the only reason why the game was somewhat interesting in the first half was because Pep Guardiola made 6 changes to his starting lineup, and that really will invite more open play because the spine and the structure are not as firm and as consecrated with 6 new players who may not have played as much football in the Premier League this season under Pep as the 6 who were taken out of that starting lineup would be. Now, understandably, for Pep, he has Champions League football to think about on Tuesday night. So 72 hours before that, he's going to name a week aside. A week aside. Now, listen, this is the side that I playfully referred to as the Manchester City B team because they took out 4 of their best players. Foden was not in that lineup to start. He didn't play in the game. Silva was not in that lineup to start with. Gundogan was not in that lineup to start with, and nor was the other player for City who has been, I mean, such a strong force in that team. He didn't get to play either. Riyad Mahrez. He didn't start. He did play later. But those 4 players I mentioned did not start. So this was, by City standards, a rather weakened team. It really was, even though, of course, they still got world-class players like De Bruyne starting in that lineup, which is what they had today. But this is what Pep had to do from a Manchester City standpoint. He had to start a lineup like this. Now, from a Watford standpoint, Roy Hodgson had what he had. Players injured, players not quite fit enough to be in the starting lineup. And he had players such as the lightness of this squad, the weakness of this squad, that came in and did not do much of anything for Watford today. You just think of the academy players. Put Shaq Ford in a game like this, the very least you could do, and I don't think he was even named to the subs bench in this game, but could you have put Shaq Ford in this game? I mean, Watford have nothing to lose now. Everybody in the Watford fan base knows they're down, including the manager. So why, Roy, didn't you at least put players in that showed promise? Now, I don't know whether Shaq Ford was injured. I know that he was on the bench in the first team last week in the defeat to Brentford. And even then, you didn't put Shaq Ford in. So that's one thing I want to get out of the way at this moment, because I think that someone younger, a Shaq Ford, someone with a little bit of bite and energy, should have been in this game at some point. And you wait until the second half to make subs, Roy, until 60 minutes or so in to the game. 15 minutes into the second half, you make a sub, and you're already 4-1 down, if not 5-1 down at that point. Why didn't you put João Pedro in at the beginning of the second half? Why was Tom Cleverley on the pitch until he was finally subbed off? I think he was subbed off. Maybe he wasn't subbed off because Lauser was subbed off. Maybe Cleverley was subbed off later. I don't think so, though. The bottom line is that Manchester City were always going to win this game today. Their goal came right into the 4th minute of the game. It was too easy for Jesus. It was too easy. A tap in, no defense. Defense was left at 6s and 7s as it has been all season. The defense has got worse under Roy these last 3 games. The game against Leeds, a loss. The game against Brentford, a loss. The game against City, well, you know what that was too. No defending. This team has completely given up. It's given up on its season. It's given up on its Premier League status. It's on the beach. And even when there was an opportunity to make this game more interesting in that first half, Watford threw it away. Emmanuel Dennis, who actually supplied the only assist of the game, that was to Hassani Kamara, who scored really well. Nice finish from him in the first half. Just about 5 or 10 minutes before that, Watford should have had a goal, because On a counter-attacking break, Dennis has the ball and he's so invested on directly trying to go for goal that he doesn't either look up or care to see that there's an open man to his left. And if he rolls that ball over early and at the first opportunity, it's a simple tap in. At that point, it would have been 1-1. And then it would have been a very interesting game. It would have been game on. But right after that chance was missed and before the camera goal came, City scored their second goal. And once again, not good enough from Watford as defensively, from a defensive standpoint, not good enough. 2-0 City. Then the camera goal came about 5 or 10 minutes after that, 2-1. And instead of trying to build upon that and try to grow yourself into the game, what did Watford do? They didn't grow into the game at all. Very, very poor give up of the ball by Cleverly. I don't know what he was thinking there by the corner flag. If you have to do anything, Tom, just kick the ball into the stands. This is something that Watford players have not done this season enough, and it has led to opposition goals. Tom Cleverly did the same thing against Arsenal at the Vic. He didn't clear his lines, and instead of clearing the ball into the stands at the Graham Taylor stand, what he decided to do was try to pass the ball or try to kick the ball forward. He made exactly that same mistake today against City, and then the ball was retained by a City player. He passes it over to Rodri in space. Nobody closing down Rodri, nobody closing down the space, and Rodri scores a sublime goal. That was the pick of the bunch for City today. Nobody closing down City. No one closing down the spaces. The goal today, at the very least in this game for Watford players, was to fill the spaces on the pitch and to stop City from running into those spaces that they love to become comfortable running into, that they are accustomed running into. That was the goal today, to disrupt City, to disrupt them, make them uncomfortable, force them into areas of the pitch where they don't like to be. But no, the game plan was not there. There was no game plan. No game plan to effectively deal with City. Now, I know City are very difficult to deal with on any given day, on the best of days, but this wasn't even their best day. And they didn't have 4 of their strongest players, as I mentioned before, resting them for the Champions League. And they weren't even out of second gear in this game, City. Not even close. And instead of Watford trying to consolidate and build upon that 2-1 deficit, and they worked hard just to get to 2-1, instead of trying to see out the remainder of the half, about 15 or so minutes of that half, to finish and go into the half at 2-1 down. Oh, no. Careless giveaways of the ball. And there you go, Rodri. Thank you very much. You tip your hat for a strike like that, because, again, that is the quality and class of City. But it's unforgivable to be giving up the ball in those areas of the pitch, when what's closest to you is the corner flag. And I know lots of Watford fans use the corner flag adroitly these days in their tweets. And there's the touchline, the byline. You could have kicked it out into touch. Let them have a throw in, but do not in the passage of play like that. When you've got a City team that love to regain possession of the ball, they hunt down the ball. It's treasure for them. You know what they do. You've seen the film. You know what City do. They're very good at this. They're well drilled at this. It's an easy pass. City player has the ball, passes it off in space to Rodri. No one challenges Rodri. It's a great shot. And he's got no one marking him. No one's closed down on him. No one's anticipating him. No one's tracking the run. He's there waiting for the ball. He's standing there waiting in an age for space. Waiting in an age and for an age in space. And what does he do? Dispatch it. No chance. 3-1. And that really is where your game's done and dusted. Any hope of a Watford fight back in this game, any hope of any remote competition in this game, was squelched just 14 seconds into the second half by the goalkeeper Ben Foster, who will be leaving the club at the end of this season. Maduka Okoye will be his replacement in the sticks, and I believe that Maduka Okoye will acquit himself in a way that Ben Foster has not at various times of this season. But this isn't really Ben Foster's fault today, this defeat, because after 4-1, where were the subs? The subs should have come on at halftime. Where were those subs to start the second half? Nowhere. The game was up anyway, really, at 3-1. Could you have shown a little bit more imagination, Mr. Hodgson? Could you have shown a little bit of imagination? I think the game, sadly, has passed Roy Hodgson by. And Roy Hodgson is one of the two people at Watford who have been the target of a lot of Watford fans. A lot of Watford fans despise Roy Hodgson. And the other person that a lot of Watford fans really despise is Scott Duxbury, the chief executive and the chairman of this club. I think a lot of what happened today on the pitch is, again, a microcosm of what we've seen about Watford Football Club all season long when it comes to the pitch. Just not good enough, just not passionate enough. There's just not enough guts in this team. There's just not enough guts, not enough good playmaking, not enough energy, not enough team play, and not enough belief. I think that this is the end of an era for the Pozzo family. I think it's the end of an era for Mr. Duxbury. I think that there needs to be fresh ideas at this club. There's no question about it. I think that lots of Watford fans would agree that this model of hiring and sacking managers is now completely passé. It has reached its course and its logical conclusion. That's 2 Premier League seasons now in a row that have ended in relegation, because this one will. It's not confirmed yet, but we all know that it will. Now, I had expressed lots of hope for Watford throughout this season. Heck, I even had them finishing 11th back in June of 2021. And the reality is now that after that defeat at home against Leeds, it is done and dusted here now. I have been one of the most optimistic Watford fans you can find. But the reality is now that this team and this club will be in the championship next season. And what I would say is that we need now to start building for next season, build around the youth, build around the Cuchos. I know he won't be playing at the beginning of next season because his hamstring is really awful from what I am understanding. Really bad injury. He's been described as a severe hamstring injury, serious one. And from what I can see of what's going on now, build this team around João Pedro, build this team around the youth, build this team and bring the academy players into it. Now, I've heard that Watford are going to make an attempt to do that in the offseason and into next season. Let's see if that happens. But there's so many more things that need to be dealt with. The manager, obviously, we know that Roy Hodgson will not be here after the season's over. I know that there are lots of Watford fans who'd like to see the back of him right now. But you know what's interesting? I don't think that they're going to get rid of Roy Hodgson. I think Gino is going to let him finish out the season. And what the ironic thing is that Nigel Pearson was not allowed to finish out the season in 2020, the last time he got relegated from the Premier League. He was jettisoned with 2 games left. It really isn't much of a point to talk about the game as much at this moment because Manchester City ran out worthy winners. They deserved to win 5-1. And again, it was only in the second half that they really began to turn the screw when they put on the players who would normally start this game, like a Riyad Mahrez, often does start these Premier League games, like a Gundogan, often does, or at least in a lot of times, starts these Premier League games. It was a stroll in the park today for a City side as imperious and as brilliant as they are and as world-class as they are to have a celebration before taking on Real Madrid, which I think will be a very interesting test for City. I don't think it's going to be as easy for them on Tuesday, but this one was. It was a stroll in the park. And for Watford, just not enough heart, not enough desire, and not enough belief. At various points, the defending is completely schoolboy and on the beach defending. And that is really what stands out to me. The defensive sloppiness, the lack of care and attention to detail, the lack of confidence. It's all there for all of us to see. And it's just not working. We need changes. I would like to see Diego Martinez come in. Diego Martinez or Diego Martinez, however you pronounce his last name. And I'm sure we'll get the correct pronunciation once he comes in, because I do believe that is the option for Watford now. He likes the youth. He says he studied the championship and he studied the Premier League. You can build a base around Martinez as well. Build around the manager, build around Cucho, build around Hernandez. I believe Watford are going to do that. And one thing I would be wary of, though, is to state so early that Cleverley and Dan Gosling and Kuchka are going to be your midfield players next season. And that, to me, the reason why that's being said now, that is a signal to the future manager who comes in that that is going to have to be the terms of his remit coming in. And I think that comes down from the owner. I think that edict comes down from the owner and those on the board who are saying this. Because for Watford FC to put that view into the public, they are serving notice, not just to the fans, they're serving notice to the prospective new manager who will be coming in the off season, that this is the terms of our engagement. If you are going to come in here, you're going to have to put these players in to your rotation and play them. I think that's what the scoreboard says in the boardroom. Now, I'm not there and you're not there, but I think that's what's going on. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a statement like that being made public so early with still, what, 4 or 5 weeks of the season left? The reason that Watford put up any kind of anything in this game is, again, because of the 6 changes that get made. And of course, the game is going to be more open when Pep makes 6 changes to his team. That's just going to happen. So it's not so much that Watford were, more effective. Sure, they played better than they did against Leeds. Sure, at times today, at least they did play better than at Leeds. And at times today, very few times, but at times they played better than they did against Brentford. Certainly better than they did against Brentford in that first half that they completely gave away against Brentford last week. But generally speaking, this team did not capitalize. João Pedro, who I love, who I think is a really good player who can have a lot built around him in these future seasons, missed an awful sitter. Jeez, oh, geez, oh, geez. That was a sitter. And by the way, speaking of G's, how about Jesus? 4 goals today against Watford. And in his sleep, really, a couple of them from defensive mistakes, one from the, was it the penalty spot? Yeah, he scored from there too, didn't he? Jesus. Someone texted me, actually, someone very close by texted me and said, Jesus hates Watford. Well, I think he does. At least Gabriel Jesus. It really is not a laughing matter because not only are we the laughing stock of people who aren't in the club, we're the laughing stock of people who are supporters of the club. But that is not the supporters' fault. That is the fault of the board and someone named that rhymes with Scott Duxbury. And I do think that Scott Duxbury is probably going to make his way out. I think Scott Duxbury is a good person. I think he cares about the club, but very, very clearly, he is the elephant in the room now. And it's a very loud chorus of Watford fans now, certainly on social media, who think he has to go. And I dare say there are Watford fans on social media who aren't going to say it out loud on social media, but probably share that same view. And Watford fans beyond social media who don't go anywhere near Twitter probably share that view too. At least a lot of them might do. It really has not worked out, has it? And, changes have to be made. And it can't just be only on the pitch. I think you've got to look at the technical director. I think that questions have to be asked of him, just like they were of Filippo Giraldi. We know what happened to him finally, right? Questions have to be asked all up and down. So many questions, so many answers must be given in an open forum. And one of the things that I've done, and this is just the start of what I'd like to do, is start something called the Watford Supporters Collective on Twitter. That's at WSC Hornets. WSC Hornets. Please go on Twitter and follow that particular Twitter handle. And there will be lots more to come, lots of ideas to come, lots of things that will be presented openly to every Watford fan and also to the board, because I really would love to engage with the board. I'd like to be a member of the supporters group as well. And again, if you would like to be a member of Watford's supporters group, then you know what to do. Email supporters@watfordfc.com. That's supporters@watfordfc.com. Offer some constructive suggestions and solutions, please, and ideas, because I have a lot of them. I know there are lots of other Watford fans who do as well. And please, you need to get involved with this. Get involved, whether it's following Watford and supporting them as you do, whether it's emailing the email address I just gave you, or whether it's following the group that I've started, just loosely based, WSC Hornets. And this is all about a better way forward for all of us, for the club. We love the club. We're not trying to destroy the club. We're trying to tell the club that there are things that need to be fixed. And here are some of our solutions and our ideas. We want this club to go forward as a true family club. And it's a family club in many respects, but it hasn't been so family friendly toward a portion of the fan base. A lot of fans don't feel connected to Watford FC, and that's got to be rectified by whoever the next CEO at Watford's going to be. It's got to be rectified by a number of people, the communications people, everybody. We all have a responsibility, but it's the communications people and the people running the club who have the largest responsibility of all. I really would like to have a conversation with the board. I really would, as part of this group of supporters. And everyone should be invited into that. And the meeting should be live streamed. I've always said that. That's how you start to bring fans back on side. Let's truly be that family club in every respect. And that really starts now. It starts with allowing Luther Blissett to be a part of this club in sum and substance, in providing Luther Blissett an opportunity to be a part of the board itself, to give Luther Blissett some power in the front offices at Watford Football Club. Whatever hatchet, whatever dissent, whatever acrimony, whatever it is between the club and some of the board and Luther, you got to bury that hatchet now. You got to bury the hatchet. Life is short. Luther Blissett must be allowed to have some power at this club. He's the greatest living legend at Watford Football Club, its greatest ever player. He has to have respect, and he has to be given some power at the club to make meaningful and impactful decisions. He is the glue that holds this club in place. He is someone who communicates with the fans, and he does it better than anyone. What better person to have as part of your club in the front office, in the hierarchy of power, than Luther Blissett? There is no one better to have at your club at Watford than Luther Blissett. Not just being on the periphery of the club, being inside the club, being in the front office, in the boardroom, out of a position of power, in a position of power to make decisions. Luther Blissett is a statesman, and he should be afforded that kind of respect. So this is to, particularly this portion of this video, is to the Watford board. I don't think you despise the club. I think you care about Watford Football Club. I know that football clubs are an extremely difficult thing to run. Now, I've never run one myself, but I know that these clubs are extremely difficult to run. The economic situation that you have at Watford, I know, is very extremely difficult. But you can't start to alienate the fan base. And I tell you, you'd bring some fans back on side if you gave Luther Blissett a big say at this club. He's earned that right. His decades of service to Watford Football Club speak for themselves. His decades of service to the town of Watford speaks for itself. You can't sideline this great person. You can't sideline a statesman. So whatever's going on between you and Mr. Blissett, I really would urge you to bury the hatchet, come to the table, and bring Luther Blissett back into the heart of this club. Please do that. Life is short, right? Let's do something in the name of peace in the name of improving this club on all fronts, because the club is going well in many other areas that I really like, but in some key areas it's not. And let's embrace and invite everyone in the tradition of what you say and in the tradition of what Elton John and Graham Taylor did. They welcomed everyone to this club. So welcome everyone into these meetings by live streaming them and by bringing Luther Blissett back into the fold. This has been a Orns 10-minute take.